You guys, it's episode number 200 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I am so excited you're here with me today. I cannot believe we have recorded 200 episodes of the Game On Girlfriend podcast for all of you. I am so happy to have been able to do this for you guys. I love your feedback. Please keep those coming. Those of you that are listening on social media, don't forget to tag us. I love tagging you back. And we've been known to give out a prize or two. So if you need some incentive, we've got it for you. Anyway, listen. So we went in and really dug through the top performing episodes between episode 100 and episode 200. If you didn't hear the recap from episode 100, we will have that below this video on YouTube or have that link in the show notes. There we recapped what we did for the first 100 episodes. And now we are looking at episodes 100 to 200. You guys, it was so much fun. Now, we did start with the top performer because it makes me very happy as someone I love and adore. Sorry, no spoiler alerts here. You'll have to listen and take note. But the rest I sort of put together based on what I had personally received feedback from you guys about what you loved about these episodes, what they meant for you. And there were so many more that I wanted to include. So please don't for a hot second think that this was it. Like it wasn't, but I also didn't want this episode to be 345 days long, which it would have been if we included everything we wanted. So please know we worked hard to kind of whittle this down and bring you guys some of what we felt were the top hits. I really hope you enjoy it. Have fun on this journey. You're going to meet some amazing women if you weren't able to catch these episodes live, which I'm going to encourage you to go listen to them anyway. Again, they're wonderful. We love you guys. We are so grateful for you all. And I personally love creating this podcast for you. I hope it continues to bring you joy and you continue to have some fun. So without further ado, pop in those earphones. Let's get to it. Let's get to the meat of our top episodes between episodes 100 and 200 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. We are kicking off, and I'm so excited about this, with my coach, Kelsey Murphy. I think she's an incredibly wonderful human, and you see that all throughout all of episode 190. But there's a part here I really wanted to replay for everybody, and I'm probably going to cry as I talk about this because at the time of this recording, the world seems to have lost its mind a little bit. And the reason you're hearing me tear up is because Kelsey really zones in this episode of what we coaches, those of us that really study the craft and the art and the skill behind coaching, we do that because we really love other people and we really love this planet. And what we're seeing right now is very painful to witness. And the way that Kelsey wants to propel coaches forward so they can make a living doing this work is so beautiful. So let's tap into episode 190.
What would you want to lean into? And it was instantly like, coaching. I could talk about coaching for hours, the empathy that goes behind coaching, the way coaches are built, the fact that breaks my heart that coaches are not successful from a financial standpoint because they're missing the tools to build that business part of their structure. Like they know how to coach. They're wonderful in those sessions. They can sit and they could coach anyone in a coffee shop with their eyes closed, but they can't build this sustainable business. So you have all these wonderful, empathetic, big-hearted humans that are not successful out in the world. And I'm like, no, F that. That is truly when they say like, what are the things that keep you up at night or make you so angry? That makes me feel like, no, something's not right in the world because these people, these communicators are the ones that could stop wars. Like they could make people feel seen and heard. And yet they can't have successful businesses, so they give up or they don't get to do it. And I'm like, no, I can teach you how to have a successful business and I can do it in a very simple, minimalist way. Come on over here, right?
What do you think it is in you? I have an opinion on this, but what do you think it is in you that has people know that you're like such a safe place to land is probably the best way for me to say that. And I think for coaches, that's so important, right? There's like that lack of judgment. There's that safety. But what do you think it is in you that had you be able to create that in 2 weeks and like have it be that financially successful?
That's such a good question. I mean, I think there's a couple things that made that so successful. Well, I think one, there's that transparency piece where I'm very honest with people. Like, I think people see my business and they see that I have 3 kids and I have this great relationship with my husband, and it feels very easy. I talk about a minimalist business. And then I'm also like, hold on, let me tell you about my hard days. Like, do you know I was crying? Like I was telling you before I got on this podcast, I literally had a therapy appointment and I'm like, is this video? Because I'm going to need some mascara. Because trust me, like I'm not putting mascara for any therapy appointment. Like I just feel like being really open and honest with people about like the people on my team, the amount of money I'm spending on Facebook ads, right? The amount of money that I'm spending on expenses and what that breakdown looks like. I think people get a sense of that and know that I'm going to be as openly honest as I can feel comfortable being, right? And that's my own journey of that level of comfort, right? I think the more and more comfortable I get as a human, the more open it gets, right? So every year I get more transparent with people on all different levels. So I think that makes people feel a little bit safe when someone else is vulnerable and honest. They feel a place where they can come be vulnerable and honest. So I think that's one thing. Another thing that I get a lot is that people do like the balance between my kind of like life coachy, like open, warm, safe space, but it's balanced also with this other piece of like data-driven, tough love conversations, right? Like I'm very much like, I love that that's your idea. So what data do you have to support that? And people are like, no, it just feels right in my gut. And I'm like, amazing. That's really important. And also what's the data, like, and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, let me teach you how to collect data to make sure that this offer is actually going to hit the number that you're hoping it's going to hit. Because here's what's going to happen from an emotional perspective. If you're not prepared for that and you're going in and you're like, this is my goal to get 15 people in this program, but we have no data to help us like create that number, like I'm going to be like, okay, so how many people are we emailing? How many people are we going to get to say, okay, I'm interested, and maybe hop on a phone call with you? And out of that, what conversion rate are we looking at there? Out of people that get on the phone with you, can you convert 50% of them, 70%, 30%? So how do we get to that number 15? Like I want to reverse engineer a plan for you, because once we reverse engineer a plan, you might be like, okay, I was going to email 30 people, but now I got to email 60. I got it. Right. I got it. At least you're more prepared and you're like, cool, I was going to block off one day for that. I got block off 2 now.
I mean, is she amazing or what? Like, we love Kelsey. And I particularly love that part where she's like, that's great that that's your intuition, but really, what are we going to do about this business part? It's just so great, because in order to help the world, in order to stop wars, by listening to people and having people feel heard and teaching people the skills of being able to share emotions, ideas, and experiences in a way that expands rather than contracts the rest of the world is really special. I loved that episode, and I hope that this little part reminds all of us of what's possible when we actually sit down and we are being with each other, for lack of a better word, but just actually being humans with each other. And that is needed so much right now. I'm very happy that our second top ranking episode in between episodes 100 and 200 was a solo episode. And those of you that love to listen to the podcast, I tend not to do video for solo episodes, only for interview episodes. And so those audio versions of what I call pretty much coaching sessions, it's me to all of you pretty directly. They mean so much to me, and they're really fun for me to record. I've recorded them in cars, in closets. I've recorded them inside my father's closet and just outside of his hotel room at times. I basically have done these pretty much everywhere. I think hotel rooms, I'm trying to think of where else, but a lot of places. And this one was one of those. And I recorded it this way because there were so many people reaching into me saying, Sarah, it just feels too hard right now. And this is episode 187, which I called, if you feel like you're pushing water uphill, this might help. Let's listen.
This idea that, oh, you look so pretty, or maybe stop having feelings because they're bothering me, right? This idea that we have to show up and perform in a certain way. We have to show up and appear a certain way. We have to show up and be what the rest of the world wants us to be. And we don't quite check in or take the time or give ourselves permission or other people permission to say, wait, but what do I want? What actually fits for me? And you might be going, Sarah Walton, this is a pretty basic concept. It is. But are you doing it? Are you checking in with you? Are you figuring out what's working for you? Are you understanding what your unique gifts and talents are so that you can express them in the world? I've done it too. We've got to be so aware of what we are here to deliver that we can't get distracted by what other people are doing. Doing things that distract your brain power, your heart, your soul from what you love doing is such a disservice, mostly to you. And I'm going to go as far as to call it a form of self-betrayal. And it is time to move into self-trust. I want you to get really honest with you. Are you doing this to yourself? Are you showing up in the world the way you think the world wants you to be seen? Or are you showing up based on who you are? Because the moment you start to show up as who you really are is the moment your business will transform, your life will become a lot easier, and you'll probably start making more money.
You're welcome. Yeah. So self-trust being something that is just an absolute tenet of everything that I teach and everything that I do whenever I'm coaching. It's so important that we remember that we have so much power in how we talk to ourselves and how we decide to respond to the different pressures and stressors that come at us, as well as the joys, right, you guys? Because sometimes we can take those joys in and be like, that's right, I'm done. I'm so good. This is going to be so amazing. And it's so great to be able to be humble, but also to turn to self-trust like that and recognize that we are able to do amazing things when we trust ourselves. And this brings me to podcast episode number 188. Social media is not a marketing strategy with Ruthie Sterrett. This was such a fun episode to record because, as you guys know, I have a serious love-hate relationship with social media. We're going to get to an episode that covered that as well in just a little bit. But for this episode, I really opened up with Ruthie about what it is to be a mom, because she really decided to start her business because she's a mom. And sort of that invisible thread that links all of us who, as I so lovingly say, all of us who've chosen to grow people, that there's this thread that we carry. And how do we deal with that and teach each other how to really grow businesses so we can support moms inside of a society that doesn't tend to support them as much as we'd all like? But also, what the heck do we do with social media? Let's listen to Ruthie. Something happens to us as humans, right? When we grow people, once we pass that threshold of a life experience where there are now human beings in the world that we are responsible for, and we're ambitious, right? And we have skills and talents, everything changes. I mean, nothing is the same ever again, Ruthie. And I think, the name of my company, most people don't know this, but my LLC is actually Better Way Moms, because I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Even now, I'm very early in the entrepreneurial journey. I still have to remind myself, you don't always have to know all the steps, but you got to just take the next right one.
Yes. I love that. And it's true. I mean, what other way is it going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's one of the things, I can't wait to get into social media with you, but that's one of the things I really dislike about social media, especially in the entrepreneurial space for women, is there's this crazy vein through all of it. That's it's just magical. And I now make $1 million from the beach with a ball of twine. It's what are you talking about? No, you don't.
And social media is a container for your marketing strategy. And there are other containers, such as email, such as your website, such as networking, such as podcasts, blogs. There are all sorts of other containers. And I do believe that business owners need to be on social media. The world is on social media. So we need to have a presence, but we can't let us consume us, because it's not the only thing. It's just a piece of the strategy.
I love that. I love the idea of it as a container, not its own entity.
Yeah.
I think that because that just takes it takes the power away from it, but not really. But do you know what I mean? It takes the weight of it and lightens it a little bit. I love that. Oh my gosh, Ruthie. Oh, so good.
And when we look at, a lot of people, I think what they find themselves doing is they compare themselves to their competition. And so somebody who just started their business 6 months ago or a year ago, you can't compare. because you're not seeing that entire history. And so sometimes those steps that those Insta experts are teaching, they don't work because you don't have the same equity that their brand has. And so you've got to figure out a strategy that works for you, which is different than the strategy that works for them.
I love that so much, Ruthie. And I also love what you just said. I hope this brings like listeners and watchers so much peace, right? And such like, it's like just a moment to get grounded there. You guys, corporations compare themselves to other corporations. Like you guys, everybody's doing this, right? And Lululemon is probably comparing themselves to Nike, and Nike's freaking out over Adidas. You guys, this is a thing. Oh my gosh. The craziness of comparison. Yeah. So I hope you really enjoyed that recap from Ruthie. That is definitely an episode I would bookmark, go back, check it out again. And if you are ever feeling like you are dying from comparisonitis, or there's so much going on that you can't quite hear your own voice, and if you do happen to be a mother as well, know that there's even more stressors on you in different ways, right? We all have stressors, but that like ability to go back to what she said and think about where you are comparing yourself instead of where you're taking action or creating something that is just for you. And this actually leads us very beautifully into episode 186, The Art of Self-Control with Tracy Pleschourt. Now, I had such a great time recording this episode with her. We had so much fun off camera. I know there's not everything we can share, right? But off camera, we had such a great time together. And I think the way that Tracy has started to approach emotions, right, and our feelings and how that leads us to act and how that leads directly to results, she's actually talking about it like it's math. Let's listen.
I created like what I call the mind math formula. It is definitely rooted in her model, but I use it a little bit differently. And I do think of it as just math. Like when 2 + 3 = 5, you can't argue that. And your thoughts plus your feelings create your actions. You start to see that when you literally can put it down on paper and you see your experience unfolding in black and white, there's no arguing that. You've now got the evidence that your brain needs and so desperately wants to actually be able to believe something. And I know that that's how the human brain works. So putting it down in black and white, explaining to people how this is simply just math, creates an unarguable. You can't debate that your thoughts are what ultimately create your results.
Isn't Tracy just the coolest? Like you can feel her energy just like jumping through the video screen, and you can hear it in the way that she talks, how passionate she is about helping us understand that our feelings, our emotions actually drive our results. And this actually leads me into another solo episode with yours truly, episode 193, where I really talk about how the heck you get all those courses you purchased off the shelf and into your brain, right? I mean, come on, we have a raise of hand. How many people, honestly, how many of you are the course collectors out there in the world? I know it's a real thing. It really does happen. So let's listen in right now and see what you can get from episode number 193.
If you're going to say to me, Sarah, I don't have 30 to 60 minutes a day, I'm going to lovingly say you lie. I love you so much. I really do. And I know we're all super busy. Believe me, I have days where it's 2 p.m. and I'm like, oh my God, did I pee today? I know we're all busy, but we're busy because we're allowing ourselves to get distracted by other people's needs. And I don't mean that like your kid calls from school and they're sick and you have to go take care of them. Of course, that's completely appropriate. I'm talking about the emails that you let distract you. I'm talking about all the messages you let distract you. You guys, we have focus on our phones, on our computers. We now have the control. You do not have to answer everything the second it comes in. That is such a mind suck and a time suck. We don't even realize how dangerous that is for our own productivity. And it's one of the reasons you haven't been able to implement all the things you want to implement yet. I can't do it perfectly all the time. We have been taught this from second one. Everybody else matters. Your emotions are making people uncomfortable. Your priorities are making other people uncomfortable. Please stop having them. Right? It's a very challenging thing for us to undo. So step number 4 in implementing the things you want to implement is working on your high functioning codependence and really checking in when you get interrupted in your scheduled time to implement something you've paid money to learn, a book you've purchased, a project that's important to you, that's near and dear to your heart, and somebody else interrupts it with their priorities. You have a hot second there to decide what you're going to do about that. And I just am going to ask you to check in and say, is this high functioning codependence where I'm so scared if I say I'll get back to you in 20 minutes, they're going to leave me, right? My client will leave me. My family will leave me. No one will love me. People are going to think I'm a bad person. This is the stuff we're talking about. I want you to just check in with yourself and see if that's what's at work, right? Because as we've been told for years, right, in between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space lies all of your power. And in that space between, hey, can you do da-da-da-da-da? Before you respond, there's a space and you can check in and say, is my highest self about to win? Or is my high functioning codependence about to win? There is a moment here where I get to decide. You have all the power.
Oh, and isn't that just the truth? We really do have so much power. And this brings us to episode number 192. This was such a fun episode to shoot because it was with my client, Tasha Blasi. She has since become an IVF and fertility expert. And what she shared on our episode together was so much fun, but also she's really up to breaking the industry as it stands now. Not to like break it down, but break it, meaning that we're going to re-examine the way things are done. We're going to see what systems work, which ones don't. How can we improve this? What do we do to make this better? We had such a good time chatting on the show, but I want you to listen into this part where Tasha was really funny. She's very funny, but she really went into how we came up together, me as her coach and her as my client, this idea of becoming a fertility coach, because when we had this conversation, that wasn't a thing. Let's listen in on Tasha sharing what that conversation was like for her.
I'll never forget when you came up with that idea for me. And obviously, you know, I'm like talking about it, but still just talking about like what I help people with, it never occurred to me. And you're like, you need to be a fertility coach or infertility. I don't know what you said. And I was like, that's not a thing. And you go, well, you make it a thing. I go, I don't make money. I just do it for free. And you're like, yeah, no, that's what I'll help you with on how to charge people. And I was like, one's going to pay for that. Like, what? This is so weird. But as soon as you said it, it was like the Red Sea parted, because I went home and it was floods and floods and floods of ideas. And it felt so right. And it just felt so right. That's the only way to describe it. And when you get that feeling of, oh, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, yes. And then the work begins.
Yeah, I know. And then it gets hard, right? And you're like, oh, thanks for the flow. Like the floodgates have opened. What do I do now? Oh, right. I got to launch this thing. Yeah. And that whole process, I mean, you were amazing. And I think the reason I want to tell that part of the story, I think that's so good, because, you know, there's always somebody listening who's like, well, people call me for this, but it's not a thing. It's like, go make it a thing. You can make a business out of anything. I say that all the time, but you truly can, right? It's like, if you help people get a solution faster and with less pain, they will pay you.
Yes.
The end. It's like literally like true, right?
Yeah. And the key part being, I would have never thought of that on my own. Who knows? For those of you listening, as she's talking to me about what I like to do, it did not occur to me. So the whole idea of us being so afraid to seek help, or like me, you know, with my, well, I wouldn't have hired me because at that point, who could help me? You know, I could have said that I was 40. This was 2016. I was 40. And I was like, that's cute. Oprah says everybody, you know, finds their passion. They don't work a day in their life. That's cute for others. I'm good. I've had multiple careers now. I was in corporate. I made great money. Like, stop being so spoiled. You're doing better than most people. You're fine. I think that we limit ourselves to possibilities because we cannot consciously figure it out ourselves. And what a big miss is that? Because it was a simple conversation with a very trained ear where this is her genius. And she asked me, I want to say simple questions, but that, the series of conversations and coaching that we did was being created for a long time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so you take
Yes.
a trained ear, a trained professional, and boop, one session, you found my dream job.
Oh, that is so good. Are you kidding me? Isn't it so great? Do I have the best clients in the world? I think I'm so lucky. Being a coach is such a great job. And Tasha's one of those fun stories to tell. If you've ever taken a workshop with me or anytime I introduce myself, I'm like, this is what I do for people. And here's Tasha coming in as like this extraordinary woman who's produced incredible results for herself and her family and for all of the women and all of the children who are now on this planet because Tasha listened that day to that coaching and actually took action. I mean, are you kidding me? This is the power of conversations. That's why I started crying when I was talking about, Kelsey and how much her coaching means to me because she understands why we coaches do what we do. So we transform people's lives, right? We get this extraordinary ability to get in there with people in the most loving and yet the most delicate parts of our lives, right? Like money, relationships, health, the way that we view our bodies, and of course, our blocks, which leads me to episode number 195, which I recently shared when I was away at a girlfriend's trip. They kicked my assets and I had a breakthrough. And it was so much fun to share that with you guys. But I do want to let you listen in for just a little bit on how it is I believe we can cause breakthroughs, but also the number one key to making dreams a reality. Let's listen in.
That's what's on the other side of a breakthrough. So I want you to think right now of something in your life or something in your business that you know is a block for you. And it's probably something that other people have told you about, like, what would be great is if you XYZ. What would be wonderful for you is if you did this one thing. Something you quote unquote should be doing, I hate that word, but something that could probably benefit you, right? Maybe it's eating more healthy or exercising more or reading more books or doing a little bit more research or developing something that you've had in you for a while, but you're postponing, we'll say, instead of procrastinating, right? Something you keep pushing off. The idea is when we are stuck, when there is a point that we refuse to go past, that's a block. Because it's very different to actively choose that something isn't right for you versus something that continues to bother you. And to be totally straight with you, that's what caused the breakthrough today. Is I was like, listen, this keeps coming up for me. Is why am I not participating in this area? And I keep saying because I hate it, right? But it's like, okay, but why does it keep coming back then? That's very different for me to say I hate it versus I've actively chosen not to participate there because I'm working on XYZ. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was that's dumb, that thing over there. What you may be saying and what I'd like you to listen for in this exercise is that's for other people. I can't do that. That's never going to work for me. And I'm not good enough to do that. What is the truth behind that lack of action? As you guys know, I will always point you to the fact that action is the only bridge between dreams and results. It's the only bridge are the actions you take because you can create vision boards. You can meditate. You can have breakthroughs like this one, right? You can do all that and it will remain in the world of the invisible until you take action to make it a result that the outside world can see.
All right, you guys, I hope you absolutely love this recap of all of the episodes that we've done. I can't even believe it. We have a recap for episode 100 for everything we've done up until then. And now this recap in episode 200 of all of the extraordinary guests I've been able to bring you, the solo episodes where I get to share what's going on in my life. This has just been an absolute joy. And I really want to take a minute and thank you so much for supporting the Game On Girlfriend podcast. This is such a labor of love for me. And it brings me so much joy to kind of help you come into the world of coaching and see what it's really like. Like, what are we really doing up in here? Like, what's actually happening? And I get so excited when I bump into someone or we get awesome emails from you guys and someone says, gosh, Sarah, I feel like I just sat down and had a coaching session with you because I listened to your podcast. That's what it's designed to do. And I love that you guys use it that way and that you listen in. And obviously, I wasn't able to recap all of the extraordinary episodes that we have been able to produce and deliver to you through the Game On Girlfriend podcast, these last 200 episodes, which I still can't believe, all through COVID, all through all the changes. Oh my goodness. I just love you guys. I hope it's been super beneficial. And because I couldn't recap all of them, the top performing podcast episodes are beneath this video or in the show notes if you're listening in. You guys, I love you to bits. And I meant what I said in that last recap. Actions are the bridge between your dreams and results. Go out there today and kick some assets. Let's make your dreams real too. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode.